What's going on, guys? Andrew Newpark Gaming back here, and today we're going to be talking about some Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains episode summaries for episodes 89 all the way through 92, which means we've got a pretty massive amount of spoilers coming up. So if you don't want any spoilers, click off this video right now. You've got 3, 2, 1. Alright, let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting with episode 89, the title is going to be Two Overlapping Flames. It's going to read as follows. Soulburner has been driven into a corner by Windy's Storm Riders. However, the flame in his heart is still burning bright. He becomes enraged after learning why Windy attacked his own partner. Soulburner and Flame then do something unexpected. So our cast is going to be Yusaku, Ai, Soulburner, Flame, Aoi, Aqua, Kusinagi, Lightning, and Windy. Now, obviously, Windy's going to be participating in the duel. Lightning most likely doing his onlooking, puppeteering type of thing to set up for most likely the next duel or something along those lines. Aoi's probably there just because maybe we are setting up towards the next duel. We'll get to what I mean by that when we get to the episode summaries for 90 and 91. Then we got Kusinagi, as always, kind of being our cheerleader in the background type for Yusaku, although not fully doing the cheerleader type of thing, but still. So moving right along to the summary, because I don't feel like the cast list really reveals a whole lot we didn't already probably know, or anything that's super, speculatory here. This is going to be kind of an interesting one, because first off, it seems to imply to us that we're going to be getting a lot more information about what exactly Windy did to his human partner, and possibly why he did what he did, which is kind of neat to me. It makes me wonder if, for instance, one thing, maybe Windy's partner betrayed him for some reason, or did something extremely violent, because it does seem like perhaps it is a possibility that the quote-unquote unexpected thing that Soulburner and Flame do is a result of finding out why he attacked his partner. It sounds like they get very enraged by this. This may lead to them acting differently than usual. Now, that's definitely not a guarantee, but still, they definitely have a response to this. Now, it's also possible that this isn't something so controversial or mind-boggling plot-wise, and it's just, hey, Lightning made me realize I know, like humans, I'm gonna kill this guy type of thing, or gal. We don't know who his partner is, although the images seem to imply it was most likely a guy, but still, going to be neat to get a little bit more backstory there. Perhaps the character itself, his human partner, maybe we'll get a little bit more information about them, and that may come to reveal to us that maybe they do hold a bigger role in this overall plot. I complained a little bit in episode 88, feeling like Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually does a good job weaving all of its plot points together in this giant spider web towards the end of a lot of its story arcs, and it felt like with characters like Miyu and now Windy's partner, that we were kind of missing a little bit of that, and that these Ignises weren't super connected into a lot of the backstories the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Likes to do, and that's one of the things I typically enjoy about it, but perhaps this will come to amend that. So let's go on to the other really interesting part about the end of this summary for me, and that's that Soulburner and Flame are doing something unexpected here. Now this could go a number of different routes. Perhaps, they Zexal morph or something into one. I kind of find that pretty unlikely, but it still definitely is a possibility on the table. After all, they've kind of been holding back a little bit of information in the episode clips we get, like the clip we got for 89, the episode of 88. We've had it in the past where they've kind of set up the clips, so it seems to imply one thing's going to happen and then something else does. So I wouldn't necessarily rely on those to determine that something like a Zexal morph is completely impossible, but I find it pretty unlikely, because I think if they were to go that route, they would reserve it to, say, either our main protagonist or our main antagonist. So trucking right along, what are some of the other possibilities here? Well, one of the big themes they seem to be using in Vrains a lot is, hey, a character gets backed into a corner during a duel, what are they going to do? They're going to whip out a new summoning method, and they're going to bail themselves out of that situation. I think that is quite possible for Soulburner, especially considering, as long as my memory serves me correctly here, the only summoning method in addition to link summoning to pull monsters out of the extra deck that he's used so far is going to be fusion. Now, we do know based on the TCG that Soulburner's cards do have an archetypal Xyz monster that's been printed, so perhaps he's going to bring that out here. That would kind of go in tandem with the fact that Yusaku recently Xyz summoned, so I could see that definitely being a possibility. There's always, of course, synchro summoning, something along those lines. That could be pretty cool. I think it would probably make the most sense as a theory, because it's still sort of unexpected, but it falls right in line with a lot of the themes that this show's been going for, a lot of the strategic approaches that they've been taking for their dual twists, if you will, because a lot of the shows kind of fall into a relatively similar pattern in how they like to have twisted events in the duels. Now, another possibility is maybe they end up losing this duel. I mean, once more, one of the things I liked about going into this duel is we were dealing with two characters from supporting casts of the respective parties, and with that being the case, it's always kind of nice because you're in a situation where you are dealing with either a main protag or a main antag who essentially have plot armor protecting them from losing until they face one another in the large majority of cases. So that could be kind of cool to see happen, and be sure to let me know any thoughts or theories you have on that in the comment section down below, guys. And let's go ahead and truck right along to episodes 90 and 91. Going to be covering these kind of together because they basically link together to form one duel. So for episode 90, it's going to be titled Creator of the Next Generation. It's going to read as follows. Bowman, who aims to become a next generation Ignis, appears before Blue Maiden. Aqua refuses to accept Bowman's ideals, while Blue Maiden wants to take back Miu's consciousness. Thus, they challenge Bowman to a duel. Despite losing Hal, Bowman is disturbingly calm as he duels against Blue Maiden. However, Blue Maiden doesn't back down and fearlessly stands against Bowman together with Aqua. And then episode 91 will read as follows. The Proud Maiden. Bowman has grown even stronger through his various battles. Using his evolved Hydrodrive monsters, he drives Blue Maiden into a corner. However, Blue Maiden's conviction remains unbroken. She refuses to give up and keeps on fighting. What kind of tactic will she use? Now, unfortunately, I feel like this is Rip Owie, because once more, she's going up against who's essentially our main antagonist of the season. Now, once more, they could always bring in a plot twist and make it so that Lightning's our main antagonist. It's definitely a possibility, and the episode 92 summary kind of leans into that being a little more possible, in my opinion. But proceeding right forth from there, one thing that really stands out about this summary is that it's two parts, which means we're going to be able to see a lot more of Owie's deck in action regardless of the result. And that's something I like because essentially they introduced this totally new deck for her that we've gotten to see in action once in a pretty insubstantial duel against Haru, aka Hal. They seem to be flipping back and forth on that name sometimes in what I've seen of the descriptions in the show and those types of things. Sort of reminds me of what went on with the twins in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. But anyway, proceeding right along with that, I think this could be a decent duel to watch. I'm going to be curious to see how Bowman's dueling has continued to evolve. I think the most obvious call on what has evolved about his dueling is perhaps he starts to integrate these other summoning methods. After all, so far, Bowman has been implied to be supposedly this ultimate human-AI hybrid in Lightning's mind. And if that is indeed the case, well, so far we haven't seen any of the Ignises use a summoning method from the extra deck other than Link summoning. So perhaps Bowman's going to be the first to do that. Adding to that theory, one of the big things he's emphasized is that he's really studying Playmaker. Well, Playmaker's used every other summoning method so far except for, pendulum summoning. So with that being the case, perhaps Bowman started to integrate some of these new techniques. Now, one big downside to this duel for me is I'm really not a fan of the Hydrodrive deck, and it sounds like Bowman's continuing to use that. They are saying he's using more advanced tactics, so maybe he'll mix it up a little bit from the routine. Oh, well, you use monsters of a certain attribute, so I'll just block out their effects and then plow forward. Just not a big fan of that mechanic in the card game, either watching it or otherwise. Now, let's take a look at these episode titles for a second. The other thing that's sort of, to me at least, seems to spell out that it may be Owie's demise is the Proud Maiden. Kind of sounds like a send-off episode for a character to me, kind of like a rip that character type of a situation. Now, obviously, I can't necessarily guarantee that. It could also be celebrating that character for their victory, but just the way everything's leading up, it seems like it's probably going to be Owie that ends up losing here. Now, another bright side of these episodes, going kind of flipping back and forth here the way I have been, is that it sounds like we might get a little bit more about what exactly happened to Miu, because it does seem to talk about the fact that she lost her consciousness data. I would imagine it was probably a similar setup to what was done to Kusanagi's brother Jin, and perhaps we'll be able to get a little bit of what Lightning's interaction with her was, or what his thought process was at the time. That could be definitely neat to see. So we'll just have to wait and see on these episodes, guys. I'm not quite as much looking forward to these because I do feel like it's kind of a predictable duel, and I don't know that we're going to see something super unexpected happen here. And once more, I'm really not a fan of seeing Bowman's deck in action, so got some biases there. So let's go ahead and move on to episode 92. And out of all of the summaries, this is the one that I think intrigues me the most, and it's going to be called The Ultimate Ordeal. Kusinagi Shoichi, an ally who has been with Playmaker through thick and thin, now stands before him as an enemy. Having been forced to fight since his brother is taken hostage by Lightning, Shoichi challenges Playmaker to a duel. Now, this stands out to me for any number of reasons. First off, the fact that Lightning is now using Jin as a hostage and as leverage against Kusanagi is interesting, because that hasn't been a strategy that we've necessarily seen Lightning employ before. Now, one could definitely make a case that the reason he did that is he wanted Bowman to duel Playmaker repeatedly as much as he could, to learn from him as much as he could, because up until this point in the show, most would probably agree that Playmaker's either the strongest or tied for the strongest duelist. Lightning would probably see him at the very least as an equal or slightly below an equal, and a good learning opportunity for Bowman being his creation. Now, where I was going with that is perhaps that's the reason Lightning hasn't necessarily used Jin as leverage in the past to make Kusanagi duel Playmaker, as he wanted Playmaker to give some exposure to Bowman. But the other thing about this that kind of rings to me in a different direction is Lightning is now using Jin as leverage. And one of the things that seems to be implied to us here is in order for these AIs to duel, they need some sort of an embodiment, like not like a puppet, I guess is the best way I can describe it, to act as a dueling physical body for them. Windy's got that servant of his that he created. Earth used like a tree-like being that sort of looked like Groot, and Lightning uses Jin. So it's interesting to me that Lightning is now using Jin and hasn't used him in the past. Perhaps Lightning is now forced into a situation where he feels he needs to use Jin, which gives me just a small spark of hope that maybe Aoi overcomes Bowman somehow, at which rate that would put Lightning in a more desperate situation where it's, okay, now I'm really backed into a corner here. I need to somehow take out Playmaker and have him be kept occupied while I take care of these other people, at which rate Kusinagi makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the other things that stands out to me about this is Kusinagi versus Playmaker. Well, we know Kusanagi's been in Link Vrains before, but if it's these two who are dueling, who are seeing each other in person all the time, is there a possibility we're going to see our first outside of Link Vrains duel, which I think is something really cool that I think they sort of missed an opportunity with when we had Revolver versus Playmaker towards the end of Season 1 in this show. I think it would be a really neat change of environment here. And I'm going to be curious to see how this overall plays out, because obviously Kusanagi's not going to want to duel Playmaker, but he's kind of in a no-win scenario. He either watches himself need to take on and essentially try and defeat, and if he's in the context of Link Vrains, the way Lightning set it up, essentially kill Playmaker within Link Vrains and delete his data if he wins, or he loses his brother to Lightning, which is, once more, a no-win scenario. So it's going to be interesting to see his emotional responses there. This is something that we have seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Use a lot in the past, where characters are used as emotional leverage, and that those bonds of friendship from the protagonist sides are tugged upon and tried to be worked against them. Very common theme there. And this reminds me in some ways a little bit of like when we had Joey versus Yugi, even though Joey's reason for dueling him isn't quite the same. He's being brainwashed in that setup, but still kind of a similar level of friendship between these two characters. So it's going to be neat to see how this plays out. I'm wondering how Playmaker is going to handle it. I'm wondering if he's in a situation where he's going to try and let Kusanagi win, make the choice, or if he's going to overcome Kusanagi, because once more, if they're in Link Vrains, then he's dooming Kusanagi to have his data deleted, and we don't exactly know at this point for sure how having your data deleted within Lightning's essential dual terms of Link Vrains impacts you in real life. For instance, we haven't really seen Spectre since his data was deleted. Perhaps it's similar to when the data is taken to Jin and you essentially disappear, right? Perhaps that's what happens, at which rate they're basically, for all intents and purposes, dead, which means it's going to be a high-stakes duel, a lot of emotional charge. I think I would be very surprised if we don't get into more of the backstory between Playmaker and Kusanagi, what bonds them together. We might get a lot more in regards to what happened with Jin. I think this is a duel that sets up for really good banter, and those are the duels that usually mean the most to me in the show, because it means we're getting the most plot development with them. And it's just going to be cool to see Kusanagi duel for the first time. I have a feeling it may be a one-off type of scenario, similar to what we saw happen with Akira, but still, always neat to have a new character duel. I don't think they can really have Playmaker lose in such a way that he's permanently defeated here, especially considering it's a duelist that just popped up, but I could see him finding some loophole to surrender without losing the stakes. That way Kusanagi's brother isn't hurt, or something along those lines. There are so many resolutions they can go for here, because I highly doubt Playmaker's going to let Jin or Kusanagi get hurt. That's kind of what has me intrigued the most here. Once more, there's the idea of Playmaker stepping down or finding some loophole within the duel so that he loses but he's not deleted, so he can keep up the fight even if Lightning's unaware of it, or something along those lines. It's going to be neat to see how this eventually plays out, guys. So with all that being said, that's going to sum up my thoughts on these episode summaries and the one cast list we had. Be sure to let me know your thoughts, comments, and theories in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If not, constructive criticism is always welcome, and I'll catch you guys next time with some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains content.